Just had a call from our window fabricator Alfab up in Queensland, and they want a template of my windows. They actually made the original windows for this brand of boat back in 2008, and I've just scribed them onto the back wall here, the window, the door, and we actually have to do a modified window over here. So I have a set of plans for the windows that came with the mold when I purchased them 5 years ago, and essentially they are for a quadruple bifold window here, a small modified window here. It originally had a larger window here, but I'm actually putting a helm station in there, so I don't need as big a window there, but I certainly do need that window to be able to pass through a marine radio and a cup of tea when I'm on watch. And this window here, which is right above the galley. Now that window there, I had all these plans of putting in an electronic actuator or regulator to drop and lower and raise that window up and down. I really got excited about that idea, and then we chartered a boat just recently and we had a couple of little hiccups with that, and under further investigations we discovered there was a lot of corrosion inside, firstly in the motor, and secondly in the track. There was salt water actually dropping down into the mechanism, and I'm just not in for that. Keep it simple and keep it working. That's sort of a motto that I'm going to actually employ throughout this whole boat, trying to keep everything as simple as possible. And Janet has spent a great deal of time on the phone tracking down the original manufacturer, which is Alfab up in Brisbane, and they are marine window specialists, and I expect the result to be absolutely fantastic. It's going to arrive in a large crate and come down by courier, and I'm really excited. That'll be a massive showpiece in the back of this boat.
Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Life on the Hulls. And last week we left you as we were coring and filling the exposed edges of our step construction. After a lot of attempts and a bit of mess, we were able to finally get the consistency right for that vertical hold, and the work now begins on the side combings. It's going to bring this whole project together. We had a lot of questions about the filler that I use here. It actually has cotton flocked, which is a milled fibre, and I also mix cabosul into it as well until it's around about the consistency of peanut butter, and then finally that can be routed with a bullnose type router, which actually gives me a good surface for finishing these stairs. There will eventually be another layer of glass over the top of these edges, and in fact the whole stair construction will have another layer of glass with which to allow me to then go and fair it with a fairing compound, spraying a layer of gel coat and then another layer of flow coat to finally finish the cosmetics of the whole construction. I'll be able to then polish that up and hopefully it'll look like it never happened.
Alright, so I'm going to put on this side combing here. I basically spent all day getting the shape right, and I've physically curved it down here on the back. I've actually put a number of curves in to give it a bit of flex so that when I put it in place, I'm actually going to glue the base down, and then I should be able to bend it to suit the outside gunnel of the boat, and then there'll be a cap that goes down over the top, which is going to have to be pretty strong to handle a cleat down here and a handrail, but that'll be on foam probably shaped all the way down along there. But that's actually going to get glued down first. I'll leave it for the day, come back tomorrow, and then I'll be able to pin it exactly the same distance all the way down.
Now that I've got this first part of the composite angle in, before I get too far ahead of myself, I have to remove the excess step that I have in here. Now this is actually a legacy of the size of the stairs that I've put in, but I've got to cut that out so that I can get all of this side combing reinforced in to get it complete. I've just completed the other side, so I'll just take you over there and have a look. It was a bit of a job cutting it out, and the only tool I could use was my oscillating tool that could get me flat against the wall of the actual structure of the boat. So we're down here. You can see here how nice and neat that is now. Now that is like a dust bowl in there. I'm going to have to let that settle, come in tomorrow and clean that out. But I now have that perfectly smooth. Now I'm intending to put some new partitions in here that are going to give me a little bit of storage in this area here, and I'll probably be likely to put a couple of big hatches in here. And obviously I'm going to have a fuel filler in this area here. Down in here, maybe a smaller hatch with an onboard shower, and possibly something like I've got hatches down in here in my helm station. So some sort of access hatch like this will certainly allow me access into the storage area that I have down each side of this this combing edge. But yeah, for now I'm just going to get that oscillating tool and cut that away, get it all cleaned away so I can start to glass underneath this stair and fully reinforce it and integrate it into the boat. Our side combing ridge is really starting to take shape. I've done it with composite angle. There's always going to have to be something in here that can give me the bond for the cap that I'm going to put on top here, which will be a 10mm foam. It'll already be laminated. I'm going to curve this foam. It'll be obviously wider. I'm just trying to get a feel for how this is going to look. But with composite angle on each side, and these are curved as well, so I can get the curvature, I'll then be able to put a ridge cap on here.
So I've got this part cut. Now it's not perfect, and I've got to remember that it's quite a complex curve. It actually comes up fairly straight from the stern, then starts to curve and lap over the top of that combing there. So what I've got to do is basically get it penned down to a point where I decide where it's going to start to curve, and then I'll curve it. So I've got this pen down here. I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap because this is all going to be filled and then rolled over and obviously glassed over with several layers of glass. But you'll find that it's pretty straight. It'll actually sit nice and level right there, but as soon as it gets to here it starts to stick up. So what I'm going to do is basically get underneath and curve the underside of it, and that'll allow me to bend that down and pin it down, and then I'll be able to glue it down with epoxy, put about 25 screws in it to make sure I conform with that shape. And by doing that I'll end up with a really nice curve there. It's going to look pretty sensational once it's in place. It's not going to look that great today, but it'll seal it up, and then I'm ready to start to fair the thing in. It's going to be lap glassed all the way over with several layers of glass. I want to make this as strong as that deck there, and obviously try to continue the curve and the contour that I've already got over there. You can see over the other side, I'll just show you over here, it's actually quite straight until it gets to about this point, and then it starts to roll over the top. So really important that I try to maintain the shape of that curve, and it is actually identical on both sides. I've taken a template off this side, brought it over to the other side, and they are identical. So the only thing that's going to vary maybe is on the top. I'll probably get 2 or 3 millimeters of variance on the actual top lip, but as long as you're not noticing it, I don't care. All right, it's come to the time where I've got to try and pick up some subscribers from local area here. We've got about 300 or 400 people a week coming through the mechanic here, so I'm going to use him to try and pick up a few subscribers for some local guys. And made up this big banner to stick on the front of the build because I'm sick of people asking me questions and asking me, when are you going to get that freaking boat in the water? So by making this, hopefully it will either reduce the questions or it might actually increase them, but at least that way they can go and follow it and hopefully not want to do as many tours on the thing itself, and I can get some more work done. It's taken me a few hours to get to this point, but I've got the curve right. It's going to be a bit of bogging and a bit of fairing to do up in the top here, but I think I've pretty much got it. I've got a few screws in just to give me some locations. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to slather this composite with thickened epoxy with the Techniglue, and that'll at least give me the basis with which to glue this down to. All right, I've got a bit of a gap up the top there, but it's actually lower, so that's going to be filled. And anyway, that's all going to be cored once I round the top over. But yeah, that's looking really, really good. Pretty bloody happy with that. That's finished it. And the nice thing about it is it gets a little wider towards the bottom here because we're going to have a big cleat on here. Now I have to work out how I'm going to reinforce that. It's going to have plenty of solid material either underneath that or probably on top as well, because we don't want any cleats on just solid foam, because ultimately that's going to crush. But we'll work that out at a later date. Main thing is to get the shape done. Now it's time to get on with this side. I've already got the rough template from the other side over there, but this template here is not quite exactly the same. It's probably 2 or 3 millimeters out at the bottom, but I'll get this one done, get a cut, and get exactly the same thing done as I've done over there. That's a bloody exciting day today. Now, if you guys can't picture me sitting there in a pair of Speedos in the Bahamas or in Fiji or somewhere, then there's something wrong with you. Oh God, I feel sorry for you. That's what you're picturing. But that's looking really slick. That is a really, really brilliant addition to this boat. I'm so happy with how that's turned out. That's going to take a lot of work to make that look like it was part of the boat. But I've got the structure, and that's the main thing. That has been a really critical part of doing this, and doing them side by side, so I'm getting them exactly the same. All right, first things first, I'm going to remove all the screws that are holding these coamings in place, and then I'm going to trim down the edge here so that I know what I'm dealing with. I've still got a little bit high here, and then I can start working on how it's going to actually integrate. It's going to be a fair bit of coring because all of these edges here are going to have to be cored so that I end up with a very, very solid face like I've got here. Now, a mate of mine was here the other day and he said, why would you bother glassing over here? I'm actually going to get these all level and physically glass all these edges here as well so that I've got that extra reinforcement. Although it is solid resin and cotton flock, it's quite a structural thing in itself. Being able to tie it over and then fair it back is really important to me to make sure that I make this thing look pretty fantastic and neat and tidy so that I can ultimately get the gel coat and the flow coat to just continually flow so it looked like it never happened. So I'm starting to core this edge out because this ultimately needs to be solid glass or filler to allow for a rounded edge and a very solid edge. Although I've got 3 layers or 4 layers of glass here, I need to make sure that whatever I do here is able to withstand the rigors of being out on the water. Dive tanks hitting it, ropes, people's bloody snorkeling gear and everything is going to hit this, and ultimately these edges are the places that generally show the wear and tear on a boat. Oh, been down in this hole for 4 hours, tidying up all of these surrounds and the base of the stairs and routing them all, but I just wanted to show you something. I go through a lot of phones, a lot of camera gear, a lot of mics and things, and sometimes it's just impossible for me to get good sound. It's a real battle. It is a work site. Sundays are great because there's no one here today, but I just want to show you why I go through so much camera gear. Now, yes, I could take a little bit more care, or I can just get the friggin' job done. So I want to show you at this pile here. I'll have a look. This is what I have at hand to do this trim. I've got a sander, a router, a Dremel, a roller sander, a drum sander, another router, screwdrivers, and somewhere in there is my camera, which every now and then I'll think, oh shit, I better film this, and here it is. I'll just show you the state that this stuff gets in. I mean, it's been buried under a pile of tools and God knows what else, sanding blocks, sandpaper, and you know, that's how it is here on the hulls. I mean, look at the state of the place. I came up here to do a pretty simple job, and what is a simple job? I mean, look at the state of it. I'm covered in glass. Below me here is just an absolute dust bowl. I've just taken my mask off. I've had it on for about 3.5 hours, and yeah, hand sanding and finishing this so that it's smooth, so that nobody else cuts their legs on it. But that is part of working here on a boat build. It's hard work, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And you know, just coring stuff like this, there's sharp edges everywhere. Bloody hell, man. We go through so many GoPros, SD cards, batteries, respirator cartridges. We break respirators. It is an expensive business building a boat.